Welcome back. In this video, we are going to talk about functions. The fundamental building blocks of real-world JavaScript applications are called functions. They are the most essential in this language. So basically, what are functions? A function is simply a piece of code that we can reuse over and over again in our code. It is a bit like a variable, but not a variable which holds a value, but functions can hold one or more complete line of codes. So let's declare a function. We start with a function keyword and then we define a function name. Let's now create a simple logger, which is a function that will simply log something to console. Function logger. So for now, we'll here leave for empty braces, and in the next example, we'll get to know why we have left here the empty places. So here we'll write an output console.log my name. So now you can use this function as many times as we count. So to use this function, we have to declare here outside logger. So here we'll write multiple times. So let's go ahead and reload. See, here my name is Max. Here it is called out. So in this function, we are declaring here a variable logger. In this, we are printing out the console.log. My name is Max. We are calling out this function called here outside thrice. So we are getting our output thrice here. So we simply write this function name followed by a parenthesis. And this process here of basically using this function is invoking the function, running the function, and calling the function. So let me just write down that here. So we are running the function, we are invoking the function, and we are calling the function here. Okay, three cases. Here logger three times, right? Here the output we got three times, right? So we wrote our very first line of function. So this is called function in a simple way. And let's do some more functionalities of function because they can do a lot more than simply reusing a line of code like we did here. So we usually, when we write a function, we also can pass data into a function. And additionally, a function can also return data as well, which means us to give back data that we can use for something else in this program. So a function cannot reuse a piece of code like we did here, but it can also do is receive data and return back data. For example, let's imagine a food processor. So we put a food into a processor, then the processor does something to our food, which is the function body basically. And in the end, the food processor returns food. Example, a juice. That's exactly the case we are going to take here, and we do the example in this console in the Visual Studio Code here. So let's start writing the code here. So let's declare a function here. We'll say fruit processor. Okay, in this we'll take two types of fruits. Let's say apples, and then we'll say oranges. So here we will call this out. So in the same line, we'll just call it out. Okay, and also here we are going to declare a constant juice. So here constant, we are declaring a variable juice, and we are going to declare this statement here. So here we're going to write. So again we'll write apples outside. Okay, and and also it will be like oranges. Okay, we have written here apple, so it should be apples. Sorry, it should be oranges. So here this apples, it is going to declare how value which we are going to return now. So we are going to return this value here, return juice. Okay, now we have written our very main code which is called generic function. So this line of code is called generic function. So let's say we also write another line of code called fruit processor here, and then we are going to declare some values for apples and oranges. So let's say 8 comma and then 1. Okay, so let's go ahead and run it. See, here we got our values 7 and 1. So this 7 here applies for apples and 1 applies for oranges. So as we have declared here, you can see here line 20, our console.log apples and oranges, this line is getting executed. So what about this statement we have just given? It is not getting executed right now here. So here we build a string. So this is a string. Here we build a string, right? Using this input string data, we get into the function. Now we can return the keyword by using this one return. We can return any value from the function. We can call anytime later also in the code. Now let's call, invoke or run the function. Now we are going to specify the values. So we have specified 7 and 1 in this case. So where is the juice? It is not getting called out here, right? So where is the juice? The juice was returned from this function. Okay, the juice was returned. We have called from this function, it was returned here. So basically the result of the running this function here is the juice that we just returned. Basically, once the function has been executed, the code here is then replaced by the result of the function. In this case, juice is the string that is going to be produced. So if we want to return the value, we need to store it. We'll do that now. Okay. So let's go and declare a constant, and we'll declare some variable apple juice, for example. Okay. We are going to return this into fruit processor, and we are going to give our custom output again here. So let's say we are giving 3 and 4 here. We are bringing out this to console.log apple juice. Okay. See, now you have got here the string which we have written here, right? See, apple juice, here the apple values we have declared here, right? 3. So here the orange values we have declared, right? So 4. So it is getting replaced with these values inputs. Basically, this is a generic function, right? So this always stays constant. So whenever we want this function to be called out, we can call it multiple times whenever we want in this code. So this stays constant. So basically this function has null values. We are giving the values here 3 and 4. So this code is getting executed here by our input. So when we give our input here, it is taking this null values with our input and giving us the output here. So as we have got here, right, apples 3 and 4, and also we have got our juice which we have returned, and we have just called out here with some variable. So as you can see, we have got it here. And similarly, we can also write one more example in this. So here we'll write console.log, and then we'll write here this statement which we have declared here, right? So let me just go ahead and copy this, and let me just paste it here, and then let me call it out. See, here you got 2 times output. Why you got here 2 times output? See, here we have just called this one and this one. Can you notice or can you tell me any difference here? So basically the difference is here we are giving a variable constant. So we are declaring this variable output here. So we are getting here output. So in this line, we are just calling out directly. We are not storing here any variable here as we have declared here in the apple juice. So here there is no apple juice or no variable here. We are just directly calling out this function. So it is getting executed this way. We can reuse the function with different input values and get a different outputs. So here directly logged without storing in the variable. So let me just write one more example. As you can see, let me just go ahead and remove this. So let's copy paste this. Okay, we'll take this variable, we'll change this variable name. So let's give some random variable name like apple orange juice. So here also we need to change. So here we'll change the values to random like 5 and here 0. See, here the value is changed. Here also with this function, we are giving the input for this function, this statement. So here it is taking this values and getting replaced in all this function. It is getting executed line by line. So let me just go ahead and remove this line so that we'll get a clarity. See, now you got it right. In this code, we just got juice with 3 apples and 4 oranges as we have given output. So here also the same way, but with different values here, as you can notice. As you can see here, we haven't declared any parameters here, but in this case, after function, the parameters was filled. This is the difference between the first example and second example, like as we discussed. I told you, like, let's see in the next example. So here in this parenthesis, we have declared here value. Here there is no value, right? As you can see, this function has no parameters and we call this function. It didn't specify any arguments. Even though we could do just by here putting 23, for example, here log of 23. So it doesn't really do anything. Okay. Since there is no parameters here, so whatever you call it out, it doesn't get executed since there is no parameters given in the function. So to specify arguments here or not will not have any effect. You see, this function doesn't return anything, and that's not a problem. Not all functions need to be written something. Sometimes not all functions need to accept parameters. In this case, as you can see in this function, we have return value. Here there is no return value also. Okay. When the function without parameters and without any return values, so it is called a block of code. So this is called a block of code, this part. Okay, that we want to reuse over and over again. So this block of code doesn't return and it doesn't have any value here, only just log to the console here. Okay, it is just what it is doing, it is just logging my name is Max thrice. Okay, that's it. It is just giving and it is printing the message here. That's it. That is what this function is doing here. As we are going to here the logger, so it doesn't produce a value and here we don't return anything from the function, and that's why here we don't save the result to any function or to any variable because it does not produce any value. That's basically the fundamentals of function. So let's go through this once again and thoroughly. So just learn how we are writing the generic function with the parameters here and works together with the calling function and with the specific values and functions written with a value and how it ends and how the receives the value, and here it captures into a variable. See, as you can see here it is all capturing into the variable. So coming to this conclusion, functions allows us to write more maintainable code. We can reuse the chunks of code instead of having to manually write the code over and over again. So this is important. So how will you know where to use functions and how to use functions? So just go through this all the functions once again. Just get an idea in detail, then only move on to the next course. So in this case, here the apple juice in this code is the most important, as you can see here, because it is writing the principles of the clean code that is used in programming all the time. This principle is called do not repeat yourself. So if we have already used here apple juice, right? We cannot declare one more apple juice because here the variables are to be declared only once. So in order to get the clean code, it has to be declared only once, right? So you can call it out, do not repeat yourself or a dry code. And so functions are perfectly for implementing the dry code because they are reusable code blocks as we discussed. Okay. And then together they make up all the applications. And of course, we use function throughout this course. Now, for your better understanding, let me just say, take this as an example. So console.log, right? This is also in a function. What it is doing, it is just logging into this console. It is just printing out the statement here. So this console.log is also a function here. So now you can understand console.log is also a function, but a built-in function. We don't have to write ourselves. We just call it by our function by using the parenthesis. So in this parenthesis, we are declaring the function, okay? And then we are passing the value and the result is calling in the message. As you can see, we are calling the value and it is coming out here in the message, as you can see, right? So this is another perfect example for the function. And same, it is true for function that we use built-in functions that converts string into a number. For example, we have written in the previous codes like number, we are converting them, we are converting right string here into right. We use the operators right like 18 into 18 we have declared here previously, right? So this number we are declaring, right? This is also a built-in function. So let me just show you here. So here we are declaring a string 18. Okay, we are declaring here into 18, right? So it is false because we are using the strict operator. If you use the loose operator here, as you can see, it is giving the true value, right? It is written in the true value here. So this is also another example which converts the string into a number, right? So as we discussed in the previous lectures. So here const number, if we give for example 23, it doesn't do anything because here number is also reserved, like we discussed previously here some functions. It is a reserved value. We cannot use this here by declaring. Okay. So once you have understood all this function thoroughly, then only just go to the next video. That's it for this lecture. I'll see you in the next lecture.